This was a lonely, brutal world for the already troubled girls who were exploited. The court heard how they were effectively brainwashed into viewing their abusers as friends, how those men fed them with drink and drugs, getting them addicted to crack and heroin, raping them and selling them. This young woman was one of the victims. She was just 12 when the men first approached her.
I think to myself, why didn't I run away, or why didn't I, try and get away? I was scared to say no, because they wouldn't accept no as an answer for anything. If I didn't want any more drugs, they wouldn't accept no as an answer. Have another drink or a shot, and I'd say no, and that wasn't an appropriate answer.
In rooms at this hotel and at flats and houses across Oxford, she and other girls were taken by the men to be abused. Police described them as an organised crime gang, and their business was selling girls to other men for sex. Some customers travelled several hundred miles from places like Bradford and Leeds.
I was out almost every day away from home, sometimes more than one day at a time. Sometimes I'd have breaks where I went home to my mum and I just ended up in hospital because I'd had so many drugs. So a majority of the time I was away having sex with different men.
The gang would also traffic her to places like Coventry, Manchester and London. Still just 13, no longer going to school, she had disappeared off the radar of normal teenage life. Her mum, who tried to keep her home, had to pick up the pieces.
She couldn't remember where she had been. She was incredibly distressed. Sometimes still quite angry, but usually very distressed. And we would go home, and usually the first thing she wanted to do was sit on my knee, suck her thumb and pretend to be a baby.
Sometimes within hours a text or phone call would come, her daughter would go into automatic mode, get into a waiting car and be driven off. And no one was saying, look, we'll help you find your daughter, we'll give you support?
No one was saying that. In fact, I went round ringing, writing, speaking to every conceivable service I could think of in Oxfordshire, begging for help, and they almost all sort of closed the door in my face.
I saw Laura in...
You saw Laura?
Across the road.
For God's sake, Chelsea!
Now, this play is touring schools in Oxfordshire, warning young people about the dangers of sexual exploitation. The County Council and police have apologised for their past failings and have set up a specialist team working to protect children who are targeted.
You can get out! I am not going out with a kid! I am not spending my days...
The hope is this case is a turning point.
I'm glad I went to court, and I'm glad I stood up against them, because they can't do it anymore. I know there's other men, but these men can't do it anymore.
And she hopes that will give others the strength to come forward if they're being exploited. Alison Holt, BBC News.